Welcome to Unfiltered and Unstoppable with Romesburg. Real strategies for real advisors, a podcast that dives into what it takes to scale a thriving financial practice. Each week, we'll discuss actionable strategies, tools, and insights to keep you ahead in today's financial landscape. From innovative products and powerful marketing tactics, you'll get unfiltered truth and unstoppable strategies. Let's get started by building your unstoppable financial practice today.
Let me start with something that might hit a little close to home. Um, you could have the best product, the best strategy, the most technically sound recommendation that someone has ever seen, and yet somehow still lose the prospect, still not have them come on board as a client. Not because you were wrong, not because the plan was wrong, not because your solution wasn't better, but simply because the prospect didn't feel anything, because you didn't make the prospect feel anything. And here's the hard truth that most of us don't want to admit: people don't make financial decisions based on logic. They justify the decision with logic, but they make decisions based on emotion. And if you're not telling a story, you are, quite frankly, forcing your prospect to try and feel something from data. Um, Data is cold. Uh, Data is very black and white. Data does not really make anyone feel anything. And that's why when you are just using data, that's why it very rarely works. You might be able to move some assets, you might be able to close a prospect here and there, but you aren't having larger case sizes. You're not closing as many prospects simply because data is so heavy throughout your presentation. Welcome to Unfiltered and Unstoppable. This is where we break down real strategies for real financial advisors. I am your host, Rob Romesburg. I work with independent financial advisors all across the country on how to grow, scale, and actually, almost more importantly, enjoy the business that they've built without burning themselves out and trying to do everything on their own. And today, we're going to be talking about one of the most talked about yet misunderstood skills in this entire business, and that's using storytelling to sell. And I hear it all the time. I tell stories, I tell stories. Yet when I sit in the appointment or when I'm on a call with them, it's 1,000 words before the prospect has been able to answer or get involved or really ask any questions, anything like that. So, the real problem with all of this is that in sales, you're trained to present. Specifically in the financial world, explaining numbers. You gotta explain the numbers. You gotta understand the numbers. And yeah, yes, that's part of it. You gotta break down the strategy. Uh, Walk through the illustration, answer objections, overcome objections. And you know what? On paper, all of that sounds right, and that is correct. But here's what's actually happening on the other side of the table. The prospect is sitting there thinking, okay, I think I understand this, but do I trust this? Um, do I believe this is right for me? And most importantly, how does this actually impact my life? How would this impact my legacy? And if the prospect doesn't truly understand how it impacts them, that's when they stall. That's when they delay. that's when they say, "Let me think about it." Not necessarily because they're confused, but quite simply because they're not convinced. And that's the thing about storytelling, is that it doesn't necessarily convince. What it does is it really provides empathy, meaning as the story goes, that they hear from you that you truly understand their position. With this story, they can relate. That with this story, they truly see the picture, and that's how the convincing happens. Is because it's much more emotional as they understand the story, and as you relay it, and you do a great job of getting them involved throughout the story. Let me give you a different perspective. And we've all heard this, right? Facts tell, stories sell, right? I've heard this since the beginning of time. Because once again, that's because stories create belief. And belief is what is driving the decision. The story, if you're doing a good job of it, allows your prospect to see themselves in the outcome. And that's before they even say yes. That's a perfect scenario. I had a conversation with an advisor recently, and he told me, he's like, "Hey, Rob, I keep explaining the strategy perfectly that you provided me, but for whatever reason, the clients, the prospects, they're still hesitating." And so I asked them this one question. Now, are you truly explaining, Gary, or are you painting a picture? Are you truly telling a story? It's a big difference, because when you just simply explain, that speaks to the brain, yeah, but storytelling speaks to the identity. And identity is what actually drives behavior. And that's what we're trying to do. As an example, if I'm a individual and I'm a poor planner, or I'm not doing a good job of put making sure my income is in line, my behavior needs to change. And you could tell me that, and I could see that, but if I don't truly understand it, then my behavior is not going to change. I'm going to continue moving along until it's too late. Let me give you a real example. So one of my advisors out of the Midwest, the good old Midwest, he used to walk uh, his prospects and clients in regards to tax strategies throughout retirement. So obviously, he's showing charts and projections and withdrawals, and how do withdrawals impact taxation. All of that is technically correct, right? But when we took a look at like his average case size, his closing ratio, for as many prospects and clients that he was in front of, his numbers were just okay. Uh, Average case size was less than half. His closing rate was less than half. So we really took a step back, and we made just one shift. And instead of starting with numbers, and once again, I'm sure many of you are going to say, duh, like I get it. But some of you may need a refresher. Some of you maybe have never heard this. He started with a story, and the story, he'd start out and he'd say, "Let me tell you about a couple that I worked with last year. They did everything right. They saved consistently. They built a strong portfolio, but when they got into retirement, they realized something that they didn't expect. They weren't losing money to the market. They were losing it to taxes. And it didn't hit all at once to these clients. but it showed up slowly over time. So every withdrawal, every decision, every year, until one day these clients asked the advisor, "How did we miss this?" And so inside, he's thinking in his brain, like, "Oh my God, this is what I've been talking to you about forever and ever. I've been showing you the numbers. I've been talking to you about the numbers." And then he said to those particular clients, "That's exactly why we're having this conversation today." That one shift changed everything. Because now these new prospects that are sitting in front of him, they're th- they're not hearing a strategy. What they're seeing is themselves in that future. Like, man, you know what? We better sit down and take a look at this. We don't want to be those folks 5, 7, 9 years down the road that say all of a sudden, "Oh my gosh, how did we miss this?" Even though they were clearly advised on this 5, 7, 9 years ago. So once again, the empathy, being empathetic throughout the situation of like, I've seen this story a million times. I don't want you to be these individuals down here that suffered because they were not responsible 5, 7, 9 years ago. And the types of stories that you truly need. Let's actually let's simplify this. There are, in my humble opinion, um, three types of stories that every advisor should be using. First of all, the before story, right? So this is where your prospect is right now. They might be experiencing some confusion, some uncertainty, gaps that they don't even see yet. The thing is that you've helped them recognize or realize that something's not quite as dialed in as I thought. Then we have the bridge story where everything connects. This is really, truly where trust is built between the advisor and the prospect. So once again, you bring up someone that's just like them, same, who's faced the same situation, but yet through your direction and your advisory, they found a better way. And the thing is, it's not at that point in time, you aren't sitting there telling the prospect in front of you, this is what you need to do, as much as it is a story now that's showing them what's possible. And then we need the after story. So this is the outcome. This is really where clarity comes into play, where confidence is at high, and they are feel like they're in control. That's important throughout your storytelling, throughout your presentation, throughout your closing. You got to make it clear that they are in control because they are taking your advice, because you are providing them the guidance. And that's huge when they feel like throughout all of this change, because change is scary for everyone, when they realize that not only are you providing them with a wonderful picture moving forward, but even throughout this picture, I'm still in control. That's where everything lands. Emotionally, that's where everything lands. Once again, that's why you're storytelling. That because you want the emotions to be involved. And then once they feel that, that's when their decision becomes easy. And then that's when you see your closing ratios go through the roof. That's when you see your average case size double or triple because we are taking these steps. And the bold truth, the unfiltered truth, let me say something clearly. Those individuals that only talk about products, those are the ones that always struggle. Period. Always. Because without a doubt, Products do not build trust. The story surrounding the product is what's building the trust. You can have the best portfolio, the best annuity, the best strategy, the best tool, the best software. But if your prospect is not actually emotionally connecting, it doesn't matter. That's exactly why you see some advisors that have closing ratios at 80, 90%, while others offering the same product, the same portfolio, are sitting at 30 and 40%. And it's not intelligence, by the way. It's not experience. Quite frankly, it's communication without a doubt. The better communicators are always the better closers, always have the better case size. You've got to be a great communicator. And by the way, the greatest communicator shuts up. What I mean by that is the greatest communicator understands the right questions to ask, but more importantly, has the guts to shut up and let the prospect or client answer. Time and time again, I've seen it. Asking questions, then providing direction. Asking questions and then over talking the answer. Asking questions that, oh, yeah, 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 I know what you mean by that. That is a killer, man. That is an absolute killer. Make sure you have powerful, thought provoking questions, but make sure, more importantly, you have the guts to shut up and take the answers to those questions and take those into great thought and be sure to use those moving forward. So let's talk about some practical application here. Here's how you can get started immediately. And once again, I don't care if you're the best storyteller in the world or not. These are things that you can apply and pick up along the way. Once again, stop leading with data. Don't open with numbers. Open with the situation. So this is step one. And along those lines, you're always going to start out. Let me share something that I've been seeing a lot lately. Then at that point in time, take the opportunity, which is exactly what this is. It's an opportunity to truly learn about your prospects' values, then their goals. Spend real time here to find out who they are, what really matters to them, what is their character, what 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 do they really want their future to look like. So when you find out about their values and they honestly and genuinely feel like you actually care, now we're talking. Then let's show them the plans that meet all of those values and goals that you are so intelligently asking about. Step two, build up a story bank, meaning a bank of stories. Now, I'm not saying 50. You don't need 50 of these stories, but build up a story bank and let's say 5 to 10, right? 5 to 10 stories. And these stories are all about, let's say, for example, tax mistakes, market losses, missed income planning, long term care gaps. Make these 5 stories your go to so you could just really click them off and have an understanding of which scenario they work with. Then, step number three, this is, in my humble opinion, the most vital step of all. You've got to make this about them. Make this about your prospect, not about you. Make this all about your prospect, about someone like them. Once again, because when they see themselves in the story, that's when things start to become real. That's when they start to make real decisions. And then step number four, as I said earlier, have the guts to shut up. Have the guts to pause more. tell the story, then stop, let it land. That's where the decisions begin. Allow them to interact with the story. Allow them to become a part of the story. This is where you win. This is more importantly, this is where your prospects win because you've got great solutions. You just need they just need your help with the decision part of it to have a better understanding of how it actually applies to them. And for those that struggle, the real issue for those that struggle, because most of you know, as I've already said, how storytelling works. That's not the problem. If you are struggling with closing ratios and case size, you're telling the stories quite possibly, but not strategically. See what I'm saying? It might be some rambling going on, might be some over explanation going on. Maybe the story doesn't even apply to the situation. And then ultimately, it's not connecting back to the decision making that needs to happen. So the prospect's sitting there, they're listening, but nothing's happening. No urgency, no clarity, no movement. So the shift here isn't to tell a great story. Like I'm a great storyteller. That's not what we're saying. The goal is to make sure that the story applies to the prospect in order for them to be able to make a decision. So I want to give you something that you can use immediately. And this is something that we call the advisor story framework. This is something that we have used for years and have had phenomenal success with. And so, as we said earlier, every story should have four parts. So the setup, make it familiar. Let me tell you specifically about a client. That way, we are now lowering any sort of resistance that they might have and lowering it instantly. Then we go through the problem. We see some tension here. That's fine. They thought they were fine, but hey, let's talk a little bit more about this. Don't rush through the problem scenario of it. Then we need to allow them to have the realization. This is the insight. And this is what you will hear from your clients when they become clients. You know what? That's when this all clicked. Is when you went through that story, and then that's when your value shows up. And then the fourth part is the transition. And once again, this is the most important part. Bring it back to them. And you know what, Jim and Mary, this is exactly why I wanted to walk you through this. This is exactly why I wanted to make sure that we are going through this together. Then now that story is what allows them to make the decision. And for those of you that are already using stories, make sure let's sharpen our skills. So let's shorten our stories. The story only needs to be 45 to 60 seconds. Doesn't need to be 3 minutes or 5 minutes. Use micro stories along the way. Find a way to layer them throughout your presentation. Make them quick, however relevant, and make sure that they're entertaining as well. We've been in this business long enough to where many of our client stories are entertaining. And once again, emotion before logic. So the story first, then the strategy, always. And there's common mistakes out there, and those common mistakes, obviously, number one, the greatest one is making it about you, not them. Another one is there's no clear point to the story. Every story should lead somewhere. Another mistake is that there's not a transition. So this is where the deal is lost. Like they don't quite understand how it connects. So let me give you a challenge here for the rest of the week here. It's not anything complicated. It's not anything you need to prepare for hours. Something simple, however powerful. So over your next 5 appointments, I want you to do something differently. Once again, do not lead with strategy, lead with the story. Before you explain anything, before you're pulling numbers out, before you're breaking out the illustrations, before you're going into solutions, start with this. Hey, let me share something with you that I've seen lately. Or, hey, let me tell you a little bit about this client that I worked with just last week. And here's the key: your only goal is to get your prospect to lean in. That's it. You're not looking to close. You're not looking to convince. You're not looking to push. You're just trying to get them engaged. Because once they lean in, everything else gets so much easier. And so this isn't just about telling stories, it's about changing how prospects and your clients experience you. You you're going to feel different about it, more clear, more confident, more trustworthy. Your clients are definitely going to stop comparing. Your prospects will stop hesitating, uh, th- because it's no longer not that they just understand. It's going to be, quite frankly, because now they believe. And when they believe, that's when decisions happen. So, if any of this resonated with you today, I want to give you something to be able to use for you and your firm. It's going to show you how to craft stories that lead to decisions, when to use them, how to transition naturally, and how to build trust, without feeling salesy. Um, because the thing is, when you get this right, your appointments will feel different, your objections drop, your closes go up, not because you're selling harder, but quite simply because you're connecting better. So head out to evolvewithgradient.com/ignite team. Once again, evolvewithgradient.com/ignite team, and request the advisor story framework. So request it, but don't just request it, use it. Put it into practice. Set it into practice. Make sure that everyone within your firm uses it. This is going to make everyone better. So, if today's episode helped you, be sure to like it, follow the show, share this episode with your firm. Because, quite frankly, when your team communicates better, everything improves. And, but before I let you go, I want you to hear this from me. What you do matters. You're helping people make the biggest financial decision of their lives. That's not easy. So thank you. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for serving your clients. Thank you for making a real impact in your communities. I want you to know that I appreciate you. I've been doing this for 24 years, and I've seen the wonderful work that you're doing in the communities. And as you go out into this week, don't overthink it. Don't try to be perfect. Just focus on connecting better than you did last week. Because as you know, the advisors who win long term, they're not the ones with the best presentations. They're the ones that make people feel understood. And the important parts of that puzzle isn't just the fact that the advisor wins or the firm wins, but more importantly, that the prospects and the clients in your area, they are winning as well. That's huge. So go out there, have your real conversations, tell better stories, lead people to better decisions. And as always, keep it unfiltered, keep it unstoppable. We'll talk soon. I'm Rob Romesburg. And as always, thank you for what you do.
The opinions herein may be from personal experience and may not necessarily be those of the Gradient Financial Group, its employees, or affiliates. Any results, topics, or outcomes are for informational purposes only. Financial professional use only. Rob Romesburg does not render tax, legal, or accounting advice and is not affiliated with or endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any government agency.